Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Rabbit Hole Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at the CZ-83 compact service pistol. In this case, this example is chambered in .380 automatic. So let's get into some numbers before we talk about the history and the practicality of something like a CZ-83. So the CZ-83 was chambered in both .380 automatic and in .32 automatic. If you opt for the .380 version, you have a magazine capacity of 12 rounds. And if you opt for the .32 or 7.65 Browning version, you have a magazine capacity of 15 rounds. Action is straight blowback, double action, single action. Claim muzzle velocity of 1,001 feet per second. Effective firing range of 50 meters or 55 yards. Again, the staggered column magazine, 12 rounds capacity. The sights are fixed front blade and rear drift adjustable for windage. So if we'll take a look at that real quick, you'll see the rear adjustable for windage. They're high profile sights, nice dovetail, 3-dot sights. They're very similar to, if you're familiar with the Beretta 84, 85 line, the Cheetah, things like that. A lot of times when I look down the sights of these, I feel like I'm looking down the sights of a Beretta model 84. So the overall length is 6.8 inches, the barrel length of 3.8 inches, the width of 1.4 inches, a height of 5 inches, and interestingly enough, a claimed loaded weight of 32 ounces. So that's something that we'll get into now. Wow, so 32 ounces with a loaded magazine. So we're going to go ahead and test that. Part of those numbers has to do with the fact that you've got 12 rounds in a magazine, so that adds to the weight, and also that it's all steel construction. So you're looking at, a pretty hefty handgun for this class of pistol. We'll get into that in a minute as far as practicality. So here I have a loaded magazine of 12 rounds of 95 grain full metal jacket, Aguila brand. We'll go ahead and check the pistol. The pistol is clear. As you can see, weapon is clear. Let's see what the scale says. So claim numbers are 32 ounces loaded. So I come up with 32.2 ounces. All right, so those published numbers are accurate. Wow. So given that you've got a 32 ounce .380, would you carry this? Or should I say, would I carry this? The answer to that is no. That doesn't mean that this pistol does not have merit. Now, when you look at a 32 ounce handgun in .380, there's competitors out there like, I would say, a Glock 42, or Glock 43X, which I'll be reviewing at some point down the line, that is lighter, smaller, and has more rounds if you use, say, the Shield Arms magazines, which I use, 15 plus 1 versus 12 of .380. So you have 15 plus 1 of 9mm versus 12 of .380. So both in terms of modularity, being able to customize it, the overall footprint of the pistol, the weight, and the mag capacity and the firepower, the CZ-83 loses on every category, right? If you're going strictly on what's an effective carry piece. And I would argue that you could carry a Glock 43X concealed, where this, you can do it, it's just heavy. This is really more on the line of a primary sidearm category. Also, there's some downsides and some upsides to this handgun. First thing we're going to talk about is that it has an ambidextrous safety and ambidextrous magazine release. Ambidextrous safety, cock and lock only. So if you don't like Browning high power 1911 CZ-75 style cock and lock, you're out of luck, because this is following that same trend. And then, of course, the magazine safety, or magazine release, is duplicated on both sides of the handgun. So if you're left or right-handed, you have equal use of both. That's a selling point in my mind. If you see later, if you see a CZ-83 with a rounded trigger guard, that's going to be an earlier production gun. So they made these guns from 1983 and through 2012. What the CZ-83 really is an export version of the CZ-82, which is an earlier design, identical in every way except for the fact that it's in 9x18 Makarov. So that was something that the Czech military police adopted and used when they were under the Warsaw Pact, and obviously 9x18 is the Warsaw Pact pistol cartridge at the time. This pistol, the CZ-82, was designed to replace the VZ-52, which was in 7.62x25 Tokarev. So the Czechs realized correctly that there was an export market for this handgun, provided it was chambered in a caliber that people could actually obtain in 1983. And .32 automatic and .380 are widely used in Europe, Western Europe. So they exported it in those two calibers. And it was successful. It had a decent run from 1983 all the way until 2012. This is one of those guns that I wish CZ had not stopped producing. I can understand why they stopped making it. It's a design from 1982. It's really 1970s technology. Polymers have taken over. Striker fired has taken over. Size and weight matter. They weren't much of a concern back before you really had polymer. You didn't really know what you're missing. 32 ounces is a lot to carry, and when you're getting 12 rounds of .380 in exchange for that. And it's not a particularly small handgun. The upside of that is that these things are really fun to shoot. They shoot very smooth. It's a pin barrel like a lot of .380 straight blowbacks. Pretty much all .380 blowbacks are going to be pin barrel. That's the nature of the design. And they're just so nice. If you look, I have above average hand size. I wear like a 2XL in gloves. And you don't see where my fingers are looking for somewhere to hang on to. You can really grasp this handgun, and they're just a joy to shoot. So that pretty much relegates it to me to a nice handgun to own and a range toy. Yes, it can be used for other things, but there are other options out there. So who used a gun like this, you might ask? Well, aside from the Czechs, under Czechoslovakia, when they were Czechoslovakia, then subsequently the Czech Republic used them. Slovakia used them because they were part of Czechoslovakia, so that would make sense. Countries like Vietnam use them starting in the early 80s, and they're still in inventory, which is kind of interesting. The Israeli police use them, and in 2022, the Czech Republic, or I should say Czechia, they've renamed the country now, they gifted over 30,000 CZ-82, 83 pattern pistols to Ukraine as part of a military aid package. So I'm going to guess that those were not CZ-83 export versions, and those are probably CZ-82s in 9x18 Makarov, simply because that's a caliber that can actually be obtained somewhat easier, I would think, in Ukraine versus .380 and .32. Another side point, if you are in the market for a CZ-83, you're going to see CZ-82s out there. Those are curio and relic eligible, according to the source that I'm looking at, which is Wikipedia. So if that's something that matters to you, that's an option to consider. Generally, the CZ-82s are going to be in rougher condition. They're all surplus guns. They were issued. I haven't really seen a pristine one yet. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. But that brings another issue into that's relevant to discussion, and that's price, right? So what are you getting for the money? And in this case, these are not cheap. So they stopped importing them in 2012. So you're looking at diminishing supply over the last 10 years. They weren't particularly inexpensive when they were being imported, mainly because of just the build quality. It's a CZ. This is arguably one of my favorite CZ handguns. I would say the CZ-75 edges it out just by a little bit, just because of its practicality and the different variations you can get of the CZ-75, which The development of this gun stopped at CZ-83. They didn't develop it any further. So the CZ-75 is definitely a more flexible design and it's more prolific. But that being said, without rambling on about it, I would say get this handgun if your primary motivation is not to carry it. If you are looking at a concealed carry or some sort of self-defense role, even as a tabletop gun, like a bedside gun, I would not opt for this. There are better options out there for self-defense. That doesn't mean that this isn't a very classy handgun and very well made, very accurate, very reliable. It's just that technology has kind of passed it by. And that's, I could guess, why CZ stopped importing and making these 10 years ago, because technology has moved on. A lot of the handguns that I have, and I'll probably be reviewing, are, I wouldn't say they're state of the art, right? So you've got cock and lock designs. So if you like to carry on a loaded chamber, that's great, with a hammered back and the safety on. If you don't like to carry on a loaded chamber, which I don't recommend, I think you should have a round in the chamber if you're going to carry. You don't have the decock option of, say, something like a SIG or even a Glock. You load it and the trigger is the safety, right? You're not going to have that here. You're going to load it and you're going to have the hammer to the rear, and you're going to have to put the safety on cock and lock. So is there a chance that if you carry it concealed, especially without a holster, that the safety could become made to be, from safe to fire? I would say your chances are, greater than zero, because you have an ambidextrous safety. So on either side, there's a chance that somehow, if you're carrying it loose in a pocket, that safety could be deactivated, and now you've got a round in the chamber, hammer back on single action, waiting for any other movement. That being said, let's get into the trigger pull. I didn't see any published numbers for trigger weights, so we're going to test that now. I'm going to test single action first, because if you look at the manual of arms, if you're going to be carrying this pistol, it's going to be cocked and locked, right? So it's going to be in the single action already. So your first shot's going to be single action, as well as all your subsequent shots. So we'll test the single action first, because I think that's more of a relevant trigger pull, and then we'll get into double action. First pull is 5 pounds. £5.6. And the last pull, if you notice, this pistol's internals, judging by the hammer, are covered in grease. That's because this is kind of a gun that's been mothballed for me. 5.2 pounds. So we're going to go with 5 pounds for single action. It is a very crisp, clean trigger. Yeah, so a lot of these guns I have, like I was saying, are covered in grease because they're just not really used. And so they're put up for somewhat long-term storage. But I have shot this handgun. It shoots very well. All right. Double action pull. First pull is 12.2 pounds. Feels about right. Even though it's 12 pounds, 11.2 pounds. Even though it's excess of 12 pounds, it doesn't feel like it. And that's because these are just such smooth, well-made guns. 11.4 pounds. So I have a little bit of variation there on the trigger pull. I'm going to say it's roughly a 12-pound trigger. Sometimes I think that I don't know how to use the trigger gauge, or at least not put it in the same spot each time. That comes up with a little bit of the, some cases like a pound difference. It could be me. So it might be operator error. So you're looking at roughly a 5-pound single action and a 12-pound double action. Both of them are very smooth, so they don't feel like they're weights. I don't see a situation where you're going to be firing in double action. I think it's going to be cock and lock, and you're going to have a 5-pound trigger pull every time. The sights are very pointable. Where you point is where the rounds are going to go. It's not like a lot of handguns where the sights are a little weird and you have to figure out point of aim. These were pretty much spot on, out to 21 feet. That's what I shot this at. I don't anticipate shooting anything farther than that really for a handgun in general, especially this caliber. but you never know. They say you can hit out to 55 yards, 50 meters, and I did that as well on a standard silhouette, and you can ring steel all day long at that distance. It's no problem. So in summary, would I get this pistol? Yes. Would I get it for duty use? No. Right? Mainly because weight, 32 ounces loaded. Magazine capacity of 12 rounds of 380. The size of the pistol overall. The fact that it's not a decocked and it's only cock and lock operation. Yes, you have a double action trigger pull, but you're probably not going to use the double action. So you're kind of limited to a Browning high power manual of arms, 1911 style manual of arms, in my opinion. Whereas Glock, yes, it has, the Glock trigger, and it's, you can adjust that, you can aftermarket that and things like that. It's a very predictable trigger. Same with any other striker fire. It's generally, even if it's a mediocre trigger, it's still going to be predictable. Let's talk about price. So to buy into a nice clean CZ-82, 83, I don't really see too many clean CZ-82s out there. It's probably because they're surplus. A nice CZ-83, such as this one here, you're paying as much as a Glock for a nice clean one with accessories and a box and all that. They're not $200 handguns. They're $400, $500 plus that, really more than that. I've seen them as high as $700, depending on the condition and whether you get a two-tone. They made them in stainless. They made them in a two-tone. You have a blued one. This one has aftermarket. I don't know if these are CZ grips or not, but they have a CZ logo engraved into them. They also came in black plastic. That's what you're going to see primarily. Those are also nice grips, very functional. These are just very classy looking, so I've decided to leave them on there. Plus, it's not really a gun that I take out much. So to keep this video under 20 minutes, short summary, yes, get this pistol. I recommend it, not just because I own it. 2, don't get it if this is going to be your bedside gun or your concealed gun or primary duty gun. The weight, the size, the magazine capacity, the .380 caliber, all of them fall short to modern designs today. Look long and hard if you're looking for one of these. It's going to be a range toy, in my opinion. That's what mine's been relegated to. If you're going to buy one, buy a nice clean one, pay the extra money, get some accessories with it. I do know that the CZ-82 magazines, if you've come across those, they are interchangeable with the CZ-83. Keep in mind the CZ-82 is a 9x18 Makarov, but they fit, function, and everything else perfectly in a CZ-83. So what you can do is buy a CZ-82 magazine that's normally chambered in 9x18 Makarov, add an extra round to the magazine because now you have extra space because it was originally intended for 9x18 Makarov. You're putting .380 in it. It's a narrower case. You have enough room to squeeze one extra round in there. So you could get up to 13 rounds in a CZ-82 magazine and put it in the weapon. I just happen to have CZ-83 mags, so that's what I use. Again, recommended mainly because of the style of the pistol. They don't make these anymore. They've been out of production for 10 years. I wish they would come back and make a limited runs of these. I don't think that's going to happen. I think technology has moved on and the market's moved on. I would say buy one of these just for historical significance. They're beautiful guns. This is heirloom quality stuff, in my opinion, in terms of the uniqueness, the build quality. You're probably not going to give a Glock away as a family heirloom. This gun, you could actually give it to somebody as a gift and they would keep it. It's all steel, beautifully made, probably better made than they need it to be. But again, I'll credit CZ, and I do have a CZ bias. So without rambling on too long, let me know what you guys think in the comments section of both the build quality and the CZ-82, 83 line of pistols in general, your experiences. Also, you're welcome to critique my video, pick apart any facts or discrepancies that you might have noticed, any tips, or you can troll my channel all day long. You can say good or bad. Just let me know what you guys think. I do read the comments when I can, and I will make corrections as necessary to tailor the comments or tailor the content to what you guys are looking for. So that's all I have. This has been a review of the CZ-83 and .380 automatic in under 20 minutes. You guys have a good day.